Welcome to All Things Korean. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about the pronunciation for the consonant li을. Is it an L? Is it an R? Or for beginners, it might even sometimes sound like a D. I'm going to clear all of that confusion for you today, so don't you worry. So before I answer the question of whether the li을 should be romanized as an R or an L, the technical answer is actually neither. If you compare it to the sounds in the English language, li을 is not really an R and it's not really an L. That's why it's not a good idea to rely on English romanizations when you're learning Hangul. It's best to just learn the Hangul as it is and learn the sounds as they are too, instead of converting them to similar sounds in your own language. That being said, let's jump right in. So when this li을 comes at the front of a syllable or a word, it is romanized as the English L. How is it different from the English L though? The English L is pronounced with the tip of your tongue touching your teeth. It's L, L. This Korean li을, on the other hand, is an alveolar consonant. And what that means is that when it's pronounced, the tip of your tongue touches the part that's right behind your teeth. That's called the alveolar ridge. Other alveolar consonants in Korean are ni은, 디귿, and ti읕. Similar alveolar consonants in the English language would be the letters D and T. When li을 is romanized as an L, the tip of your tongue touches the alveolar ridge instead of your teeth. Some examples would be 라면, 로봇, or 라디오. It's also romanized as an L when you have two consecutive li을 sounds in a word, such as 몰라. Now, when the li을 consonant comes between two vowels, that's when it's romanized as an R. But is it the R sound in English? No, not really, and let's look at why. For one thing, when we pronounce the word, for example, 사람, we don't pronounce it like the American R. We don't say 사람. We don't really roll that R, if that's the correct way to express it. It's not like a rolling, it's not a R. 사람, 람, 라. And this sound is actually called an alveolar flap. What an alveolar flap is when the tip of your tongue, it kind of just flicks and slightly hits that same alveolar ridge. So the sound doesn't start from the tongue touching the alveolar ridge, it's just a quick flap. And you might not really be able to grasp what this alveolar flap is, but if you're familiar with American English, this sound actually exists in American English. I'm going to give you an example. Look at the word ladder, L-A-D-D-E-R, and ladder, L-A-T-T-E-R. Can you tell which one I'm pronouncing? Ladder. Ladder. You might not be able to tell the difference because in American English, the D and the T, they kind of change into these alveolar flap sounds. It's just that when you hear this alveolar flap, you perceive it as a D or a T sound when it's actually not. So in other words, in American English, the alveolar flap is associated with the letters D and T. But in Korean, this alveolar flap is associated with the consonant li을, which is romanized as an R. And this is why a lot of beginners who are just learning Korean might tend to hear this li을 as a D instead of an R. But then, if you look at other languages, this alveolar flap is actually associated with the letter R. For example, let's look at the name Maria. I think English is the only language that would pronounce it as Maria. If you look at other languages, like I think Spanish or Italian, they wouldn't say Maria, they would say Maria, Maria, that flap. And that's also how we pronounce Maria in Korean. We say Maria. So to wrap it up, li을 is romanized as an L when it comes at the front of a syllable or a word, or when there are two consecutive li을 sounds in a word. But it's not the English L in the sense that the tip of your tongue touches the alveolar ridge instead of your teeth. When the liud comes between two vowels, it's romanized as an R, but it's actually an alveolar flap, which is the same sound you get in words like butter or rider. I hope this video cleared things up for you. If you found this video helpful and would like more, please give it a like and subscribe to this channel for more videos on Korean language and culture. I'll see you in the next one. 다음 영상에서 만나요.